Welcome back, deep divers. Today, we're going to be diving deep into the world of AI predictions.
Oh, this should be interesting.
I know, right?
Huh?
We're actually basing this deep dive off a recent episode of the Alternative World podcast.
Ah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, they had some really fascinating takes on whether algorithms can actually see into the
I
future.
don't know.
Yeah. Or if they're just being used to manipulate us all.
I think a lot of people have that concern nowadays.
For sure. And that's exactly what we're going to try to unpack today.
I'm ready to unpack.
Okay, so first things first. AI predictions are already all over the place in our lives.
Yeah, even if we don't always realize it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, we're not talking about crystal balls and fortune tellers.
Right.
This is all about AI looking at tons and tons of data.
Huge, massive amounts of data.
Exactly. And then using that data to find patterns and figure out, probabilities.
So it's kind of like, imagine you're trying to predict the weather. You can't know for sure if it's going to rain tomorrow, but you can look at past weather patterns, you can look at what the conditions are right now, and make a pretty good guess.
Yeah.
AI is basically doing the same thing, but on a much, much larger scale.
Right. It's taking in so much information.
Yeah, and it's getting pretty good at making those predictions.
And we see this happening all the
Yeah.
time. Like those product recommendations that are so accurate, it's almost creepy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Or that song that pops up on your playlist just when you were thinking about it. That's AI in action.
That's AI predicting what you want to hear.
Exactly. But it goes beyond just, suggesting what you should buy or listen to next. AI predictions are being used in some pretty serious fields. We're talking healthcare, finance, even criminal justice.
Oh, I know. The Alternative World episode really dove into that, especially when it comes to the stock market.
The stock market, yeah.
They were talking about how these algorithms can predict market movements with crazy accuracy.
And they were even suggesting that trades could be happening based on these predictions before the public even knows what's going on.
Like insider trading, but it's the AI that's the insider.
That raises some questions. Like, are we headed towards a future where AI is calling the shots on the stock market? Is that where we're going?
It's kind of scary to think about, right?
Yeah.
And then they brought up this concept of AI prophecy.
Okay, AI prophecy. That sounds intense.
I know. So it's more than just spotting patterns. It's about predicting complex human events, like on a global scale.
So you're saying AI could predict things like political uprisings, economic crashes,
Right.
even shifts in culture.
That's what they're suggesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Like imagine an AI that could tell you exactly where the next big protest is going to happen. The Alternative World episode actually used that as an example.
Wow. I mean, that kind of predictive power could have some serious consequences.
Right. And that's where things get really tricky. Like, what happens when these predictions become public knowledge?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Could they actually end up influencing the events they're trying to predict? Like a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing.
Absolutely. Alternative World gives some pretty concrete examples.
Yeah.
Let's say an AI predicts that a certain candidate is going to win an election.
Right.
Just that prediction alone, even if it's not 100% certain, could sway voters.
Totally. Like people might think, well, if the AI says they're going to win.
I might as well jump on that bandwagon.
Exactly. Or it might discourage people from even voting if they think their candidate has no chance.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about seeing the future anymore. It's about potentially shaping it. That's where things get a little ethically murky.
Exactly. And this is happening across all sorts of different areas. Like, let's take politics, for example.
Okay, politics.
We know AI is already analyzing public sentiment,
Right.
trying to predict election outcomes.
But how do we make sure this technology isn't being used to manipulate voters? Are we going to see campaigns that are crafted to appeal to algorithms instead of addressing real issues that people care about?
That's a huge concern. And then there's criminal justice. They talked about these predictive policing algorithms.
Predictive policing.
Yeah, they try to forecast where crimes are going to happen
Oh, wow.
and even who might commit them.
That sounds a little bit like a Minority Report.
Right, and that's what the Alternative World episode was getting at.
Mhm.
How do we avoid creating these self-fulfilling prophecies where certain communities are unfairly targeted just because an algorithm says they're more likely to commit a crime?
Yeah, that's a slippery slope. How do we make sure these algorithms aren't biased? How do we ensure they're not just perpetuating existing inequalities?
That's a huge question. And it's not just about those two areas, right?
No, it's not.
It's in public health, too. Like AI models,
Yeah.
trying to predict disease outbreaks.
To try to prevent them.
Yeah. But then who gets to make the decisions based on those predictions? And what if those predictions are wrong? What are the consequences of that?
That's a lot of responsibility to put on an algorithm. We're talking about potentially life or death decisions here. And the Alternative World episode also touched on AI in warfare. Like, imagine an AI that can predict where conflicts are going to break out based on all sorts of global factors.
Yeah.
Could that be used to actually prevent wars? Or could it just lead to more manipulation, more tension, more conflict in the long run? It's a lot to think about.
It really is. And it's all happening right now. This isn't just some sci-fi fantasy anymore.
AI is already shaping our world in some pretty profound ways.
And we're just starting to understand the implications.
It's a lot to process, right? Like all this predictive power, it
Right.
comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it's almost like we're not just watching the future unfold anymore. We might actually be shaping it.
Right. And that's what really got me thinking after listening to the Alternative World episode. Like, where does our own free will fit into all of this?
Yeah, if AI is getting so good at predicting what we're going to do before we even do it, does that mean we're not really making our own choices?
I mean, think about it. Even without AI, we humans were creatures of habit, right?
Totally.
We tend to follow these predictable patterns based on, our personalities, our past experiences.
Environment.
Exactly. So it's not like we're totally random in our actions.
So in a way, AI is just kind of amplifying what's already there.
Yeah, kind of. But the thing is, AI is doing it on such a massive scale with so much data.
Yeah.
It's taking it to a whole other level.
It's not just about knowing whether you like coffee or tea anymore. It's like,
It's like, how are you going to vote?
right.
What career are you going to choose? Who are you going to fall in love with?
Okay, now that's a little creepy.
The point is, the more data AI has access to, the more accurate those predictions can become.
And the scarier it gets.
And the more those predictions become accurate, the more they could start to influence our choices, even if we don't realize it.
Like the prediction itself becomes part of the equation.
Exactly. It's like a feedback loop.
So what do we do about it?
That's the big question, right? This is why we need to be talking about things like transparency and regulation when it comes to AI.
So we can make sure these systems aren't being used to manipulate or control us.
Exactly. It's not about being afraid of AI. It's about understanding its limitations and being aware of the potential risks.
Right. It's about having these conversations and figuring out what kind of future we want to build with AI.
And that's something that the Alternative World episode really got me thinking about. Like, what can we do as individuals? Like, how can we protect ourselves?
What can we do? Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I think awareness is a big part of it. Like, the more you understand about how AI predictions work, the better equipped you are to recognize when you might be being influenced.
So it's about being a critical consumer of information, like not just taking everything at face value.
Exactly. Question everything. Don't just blindly accept those recommendations, those predictions. Think about the source. Think about the potential biases that might be involved.
And what about all the data we're constantly generating about ourselves online? I mean, that plays into this too, right?
Absolutely. Our digital footprint, it's huge. We need to be mindful of what information we're sharing, who has access to it.
Yeah, good point. We all need to be a little more careful about our data privacy.
And don't be afraid to demand transparency. Like, if you're interacting with an AI system, ask questions. How are these predictions made? What data did you use? The more we demand transparency, the more accountable these systems will have to become.
So knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. The more we understand about AI, the better equipped we'll be to navigate all this and to make sure it's used for good.
So it's not like we're just helpless bystanders in this AI-driven future. We can actually do something about it.
We're not just passengers. We can help steer the direction.
We can have a say in how it all unfolds.
We have a responsibility to engage in these conversations, to think critically about the ethical implications, and to really try to steer AI in a direction that benefits everyone.
That's what I really appreciated about the Alternative World episode. It didn't just focus on the scary stuff.
No.
It also highlighted the potential, like how AI could actually help us solve some of the biggest problems we're facing.
AI is a powerful tool. Like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
And it's up to us to decide how we want to use it.
To choose the path we want to take.
It's not just about predicting the future anymore. It's about creating the future we want.
A future where AI works for us, not against us.
I mean, it's easy to get overwhelmed by all this, AI, predictions, prophecy.
It is a lot.
But, there's also a sense of like, okay, if we know what the potential problems are, maybe we can actually do something about it. We can work towards solutions.
I think that's the key takeaway here. The Alternative World episode, it wasn't just about doom and gloom. It was really like a call to action.
Okay, so where do we start? What can we actually do?
Well, for one, I think we just need to keep having these conversations. The more we talk about the ethical implications of AI,
Yeah.
the more awareness we raise, the more we can push for responsible development, responsible use.
We can't just leave it up to the tech companies to figure all this out, right?
Exactly. We need to be involved. We need to be shaping this future.
So what does that look like? Like, what can people actually do?
Well, educate yourself.
Yeah.
Learn about how these AI systems work.
Uh,
Participate in these conversations. Demand transparency from the companies that are building these systems.
so it's not about being anti-AI. It's about being, like, pro-humanity.
Exactly. AI has so much potential to do good in the world, but we need to make sure that it aligns with our values.
Right. That it benefits all of us.
All of us, not just a select few.
So how do we find that balance then? Like between harnessing this incredible power of AI, but without giving up our freedom, our privacy, our sense of agency.
It is a delicate balance, but I think it's possible if we're willing to put in the effort.
And what really struck me from the Alternative World episode is that this isn't some far-off future problem. This is
No.
happening now.
It's happening right now.
Hmm.
AI is already shaping our world in huge ways
So we need to be thinking about this stuff now.
before it's too late.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah, it had.
I feel like I have a much better understanding of not just the amazing things that AI can do,
Right.
but also the very real risks involved.
And I hope it's given you, our listener, some things to think about as well. Like, what role do you want AI to play in shaping the future? It's a question we all need to be asking ourselves.
Absolutely. Because it is our future, after all.
Yeah.
And we have the power to shape it, even in this age of AI prophets.
Even with all these algorithms and predictions.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.